Hello everyone. This is a table that I found on the internet and it's from about 1740 to 1750. It's a trestle table. And I'm going to show you what my process was for recreating this in 1/12 scale. So here I have some balsa wood and I'm going to cut the tabletop first. And this is 1/8 thickness, 1/8 of an inch. And this is just a little table that I have, and it's a 1/12 size. And I'm just using the tabletop to measure this tabletop, only mine is going to be longer. And this is for a kitchen table for my log home. That's a mid-18th century log home that I'm going to be building. And it will go in front of the walk-in fireplace. What I'm doing here is I made a template of the supports and what it looks like in silhouette for half of it. And this first attempt didn't work out, so I actually flip it over and start again. I didn't pull the template all the way down to the bottom because that would make it so I would have to cut it more than I needed to, so I started over. And I'll just flip that little template around and draw it on the other side as soon as I have the adequate pencil marks in. And it'll be just like the other side. And this is very close to the table that you saw in the beginning, but it's not exactly the same. It's a little simpler in design, which makes it a little easier cutting it out when it's small like this and you're using such a soft wood like I'm using. And I'm using a number 2 blade on my X-Acto knife, and that helps me to get a better cut. I've speeded this up, so this looks like it's going, it looks like I'm moving really quickly, but it is speeded up so that this isn't real time. This is taking actually quite a bit longer than what you see here. I don't want to give the impression that I'm cutting this that fast because that's just not how it happens. It took over 2.5 hours to make this table, and that's not including the drying time or curing time for the glue. And I usually take my time when I'm cutting. I don't want to cut myself, so I move pretty slowly and very deliberately. But you don't get that impression from this because I've speeded it up so much. And I'm just going to trim that a bit. Little ragged edges that didn't get cut off. And this is 1/4 inch thick balsa wood for these supports. These tables have a long history. These trestle tables go back to medieval times, and although this doesn't look quite like the medieval ones, they're very similar. So the idea of having a table that you could knock apart and take with you or move around or collapse to make a room bigger was a great idea. And yet when you put it back together, it would be very stable. And this particular one, the top is screwed in from the top, at least the tabletop is screwed in into the supports, and they could be unscrewed, and then the base could be taken apart. 2 pegs would hold a brace in between these 2 supports. And then that's it. You'd have these 3 pieces and then the 2 pegs that went in on the sides. And you could store this and put it aside somewhere if you needed your room for maybe a bigger purpose, or you wanted to take it with you somewhere. I lived in Virginia, and my husband and I bought a home there. And when I was in Virginia, I did a lot of antique hunting. And I lived in Waterford, which was settled in the 17th century. And I saw a number of these trestle tables at antique stores. I didn't really have any way of figuring out how old they were. Most of them looked very similar to this one that I'm making and the one that I showed you that I'm basing this on. But they were making these types of tables well into the 19th century, and even into the 20th century. People were reproducing them. And you see them today on the internet. You can buy ones that look fairly similar, that are brand new, probably made in China. Anyway. Now I'm just making sure that I have these correctly cut out and they're the same size. And I'm going to give them a quick sand. This is the house we almost bought in Waterford. At least my husband says this is the house. We actually looked at 3 log homes in Waterford that we were going to buy at one point. He says that's the one, but I think it was a different one. But I put this one in because he's usually right about this stuff, my memory. I don't know. Anyway, we almost bought that place, and it had 3 floors, and it was a beautiful log home. But it needed so many repairs that we both felt in the end that we couldn't afford it at that point in our lives. And this is many years ago. And that log home was, if that's the right one I'm thinking of, was built in the 1740s. And the inside walls were all plastered. So there wasn't any log showing on the inside of the house. All the log was on the outside. And the woman who owned it said at one time they had even put clapboard on the outside in the Victorian period. And then that was taken off before World War II, I think she said. I can't remember. But she said that the plaster on the inside walls had probably been put there almost right away by the people who built the log home. And I've heard of this before, and I've seen it, that they would just plaster the walls. They didn't want those logs showing. So when I build my log home for this project, I'm going to make it look like the inside of the log house is plastered. And then the outside will be logs, and it will have dovetail notches. But yeah, we missed our opportunity to buy a colonial log home. But we bought a property that had some land, which was a good trade-off, right outside of Waterford. So we were still in Waterford, but not in the village. And they have a wonderful fair there every year in October, the Waterford Fair. And they do reenactments and battle reenactments and all sorts of things. It's quite lovely. Now I'm just using some rasps. I bought these at Harbor Freight some years ago, and they do a good job of taking off all that rough stuff. I am actually recutting the brace. I cut one, and I didn't like the wood because the piece of balsa wood I used was cut very badly by some kind of a saw, and I couldn't sand it. So I'm making another one, but I'm basing it on the same size, and it's just a cleaner piece of wood. So that's why there's 2 there, and I'm just going to use this one as a template. Okay. But that was a little background for my log home that I'm building and working on actually right now. But you won't see it for a couple of weeks. There just isn't enough done. I'm really in the planning stages. I have one course of logs done, but it's not enough to see anything. So it'll be a little bit before I actually start showing everybody what it'll look like. And I'm going to make all of the furniture for this log house. Like I almost made all the furniture for the 1930s house, but not quite. I did have furniture that was bought and vintage. But not for this one. This one I'm making everything. Every utensil, every piece of furniture and linens, whatever's in the house, I'm going to make it on this one. There's only going to be 4 rooms though, so I'm not really worried about it at this point anyway. And I'm just going to carve out these notches here. Actually, that's not a notch. What do you call that? The thing that joins into the notch. I'm not up on my woodworking terms, unfortunately. Now it looks like I'm, being very careless here, but like I said, I've speeded this up. I'm moving very slowly. If you're not used to working with X-Acto knives and balsa wood, I wouldn't suggest rushing unless you want to lose a finger. I move very slowly and deliberately when I'm carving this stuff, so. And I'm going to just take these holes and just punch them out after I loosen up the wood in between. I'll dig it out a little bit. Don't want to make them too big or it will be too loose. I need another knife here, so I'm going to get in there and pick that out. Like I said, it looks like I'm doing this very quickly, but I'm not. This is a time-consuming process. And I'll just make that hole smooth so I can join it. Now, it's too short, what comes out at the end, so I have to cut some more off because there has to be what looks like a peg that runs through that notch, that extension. Can't remember what it's called. Terrible. But you'll see in a few minutes what I'm talking about. So I'm making this part longer. And this one will have to be made longer as well. And I want it to have that hand-carved look. Okay, that's long enough. That'll work. And now I'll do that other hole so that it'll be the same as the one I just did. I'm just going to mark it with the pointed end of this rasp just to make sure I get it the same size. This is not a difficult project. The only thing that is difficult about it is being careful not to split the wood. But you could make this out of hardwood. If you have a scroll saw or a coping saw that you're good with, there's no reason why you couldn't whip something like this up with, something like basswood or even pine or any one of the woods, beech, that are harder than balsa wood. I'm starting to get really used to using balsa wood though, and I kind of like it, so we'll see where I go as time goes on, but I seem to be able to do things much more quickly with the balsa wood. Okay, there's the support for the table, and I have it marked out where it needs to go, lined it up with some pencil. Now the top, I'll get to that in a minute, is going to look like it has boards on it. It's not going to just look like a solid piece. These are the pegs that I'm carving, but what I discovered is I can't make them thin enough and the hole big enough on the ends to put a peg in. So what I'm going to do, although I did lose a little piece of film, is I'm going to make them look like they are stuck through that end to hold the brace to the supports. And I did that with a straight pin all the way through and cut these pegs so that the top would fit on, the pointed end would fit on the bottom, and at the top there would be the flatter end, so it would look like they were going through. The pegs go there where that arrow is, but I'm going to actually make it look like they go through, but you'll see, because I couldn't put a hole in that end. It just won't tolerate it. I tried it with that other piece that you saw before, the one that was kind of scrabby that I didn't want to use, and it just split both ends. So it was pretty impossible. And I'm just going to trim this up a little bit more to make it look a little more rustic. Don't want any sharp edges. And these pegs, you see how they would go in, but I can't do that. So I'm going to make them look like they have been pushed through by cutting these. I'll cut the center out. And then I actually put a very fine pin right through the middle and was able to stick each of these on very carefully, top and bottom, and glue it. And they're very stable. They're not going to break off. But I lost that one little bit of film. I searched everywhere for it. I don't know what I did. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I took a pencil and I marked what I wanted to look like boards, that the top is made up of boards, not just a single piece of wood. So I etched some pencil lines in it, and now I'm just sanding it all the way around, giving it a quick sand. I was tempted to make it with boards glued together, but I decided not to, that I could create the impression that it was made out of 4 boards for the tabletop, and it would be a bit sturdier, so I just decided that I would make it with the lines drawn in. And I'm just going around and making sure that this is completely sanded. I keep seeing little places that need some work. So, okay, there's those pegs, the pieces. There's the 4 little pieces. And we're coming to the part where I lost the film. So, at some point here, and then I just took an X-Acto knife and cut it in a little bit so that when you look at it, it gives the impression that these are separate boards. I'm just going to put the first coat on the top and let that dry. This is apple barrel matte paint, and I'm watering it down half and half water, half paint. And it's burnt umber, and the first coat is going to be all over this watered down paint. I'm not using stain on any of this because the wood glue that I'm using it resists stain for some reason. It says it doesn't, but it does. But I like the glue, and I'm going to keep on using it because it dries fast enough for me. It's very sturdy, but it doesn't take stain very well. So I'm just using watercolor, water-soluble paint, acrylic paint. And this is an Inktense pen, and I'm just going in there and dividing the boards up. I want to be able to create layers with color so I get some depth. There's the 2 pegs that I was getting ready to put in. I just wanted to point that out again. And that's what it looks like. It looked like after I made it look like they're going through with the 2 pin. A pin was stuck through it, and then the top and the bottom were glued on. So, okay, now I'm going to paint the rest of it, and it's half burnt umber and half water. And I'm just going to go over the whole thing. It's a very thin layer. And I want to build up the layers again like I did with the other pieces of furniture. And I have to let these layers pretty much dry in between doing the next step. I have a different method for each piece of furniture. It just depends on what the furniture is and how I want it to look. So if you see one method with another piece of furniture, it's probably not going to be the same as this. the next one won't be the same as this one, and so on. So I don't have one method that I'm doing it based on what the image looks like that I have of the original. So that may require me to change quite a bit. Now this is burnt sienna, and it's 1/2 burnt sienna, 1/4 water, and 1/4 wood glue. And the wood glue really helps to harden the balsa wood, and that's why I put it in. It just stiffens it up. And I'm just putting a light layer on, and I'll dry brush it a little bit too. You can still see the lines where the table is supposed to look like it's put together with boards. This is layer number 2. It also, that wood glue also adds a little bit of body to the paint. I've been experimenting with wood glue mixed with paint for a while now, and for me, this is a good use of it for strengthening the softer woods. But it could change the color, like if you had a pink or a very light blue, because the paint has a bit of a yellow cast to it, you have to take that into consideration. But for something like this, it's not going to make any difference, this color. Okay. I'm just going to touch it up with some full strength here and there after I get this first coat on, because I could see some places where the glue seeped out, and I want to make sure that glue is covered. Although this paint, this glue doesn't take stain very well. It does take the paint, but sometimes the paint doesn't stick like it should. Now this is the Waverly, and you just saw a picture of that. And I'm going to put, this is a antiquing wax. It's water soluble. I'm putting a good layer on it, and this is a very dark brown. I would say it's closer to a burnt umber with, or a raw umber, more of a raw umber. But the thing about this stuff is you really have to wipe it off completely because it won't dry otherwise. So I'm going to put it on, wipe every bit of it off that I can, and then I'm going to sand it. Now I'm just using a very fine grit paper. This is a 1000 grit paper, and I'm giving it a quick sand all the way around just to kind of blend it in with the other paint and lift maybe a little bit of that last layer up, so that I give this piece a little bit of depth. So I'm not going to sand it on the back, on the bottom, but I will on the legs. I'm just going to take all that excess off. And this doesn't really have any smell to it. It's water soluble. It's not like putting stain on when we have strong chemical smells, solvent smells. This doesn't have any smell. It's the other advantage of not using, commercial stains. If you have a small area that you're working in, it's not well ventilated, it's probably not a good idea to use stains in those places. So I don't have any worries with the paints I'm using. Okay, I'm just going to buff it all the way around. 1000 grit paper, and then I'll let it dry completely before I put the final layer on, which is going to be Mod Podge matte finish. I'm also going to do some work with the pencil again. I'm putting in that line one more time. Just keep putting it in. And I'm going to use some more Inktense pencils. I'm going to use a a dark brown and a blonde colored pencil to put some wood grain on the tops so that it looks like it's more natural. So there's the dark brown, and I'm just going to draw lines like you would see in sawn wood. You can't see it very well under this particular lighting, but it's there. And there's the blonde, and that will just pick up some areas that make it look a little more natural, like like a hardwood. And then I'm going to let this dry and put on the Mod Podge. There, see the magic of film. It's dry. So I'm just putting it on. And this, like I said, it's the matte, but it has still, even though it's matte, it still has a little bit of a sheen to it. So when this is completely dry, I'm going to go over the whole thing lightly with 1000 grit sandpaper again to take some of that unwanted sheen off of it. But you won't see me do that. That's why I'm telling you that I do that with most of the stuff. I actually sand it again after this application of Mod Podge. The Mod Podge really pulls the colors together that I've layered, so it looks messy. But the good thing about this is it dries clear and it contracts, so you don't have any streaks usually and gloppy areas that show through. Okay, we're getting close. There. Now, here's what it looks like. And this is closer to the color. I had under that other lighting it looked more red, but this is what it really looks like. And I have it set up with a little picture. That picture I didn't make. I cut that out of a magazine. But that's from the 1700s, early 1700s. So I thought it would look nice with the table. I just made the frame and hung it up. And the wine bottle in the middle was one I made with my slipware. The wine bottles then didn't look like the wine bottles we have now. Well, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll like and subscribe, and I will have another video out actually in about 3 days, the William and Mary blanket chest. Bye-bye.